fellow bladder infections. In this video, I'll be taking a look at some underrated Roblox games. To clarify, an underrated game would be a great game that doesn't get talked about, or a newly created game that doesn't have much recognition. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. For first, I put Dingus. In Dingus, you are one of two roles, a hunter or a hider. The hiders try to blend in with NPCs and do tasks. The tasks you can do will vary. Some tasks hiders and NPCs can do, and others only hiders can do. Meanwhile, hunters will try to profile all the civilians to look for any outliers and shoot them. When a hider dies, they'll become a ghost and be able to do tasks while not having to worry about blending in. In Dingus, there are currently only two maps, or at least that's what I've seen. Anyways, the two maps are a sort of beach city and a Wild West town. I believe this game is unpopular due to lack of content and the game not taking itself seriously. Lack of content is mostly the low amount of maps, and a few well-deserved fixes for the NPCs. The last point I made is the game not taking itself seriously. I mean, the game is literally called Dingus. They don't advertise it or anything, and it isn't wildly popular. Although I think that's a good thing. Due to lack of advertising, the game has a tightly knit community. Overall, I think Dingus is a game with an amazing premise that could use some time to grow. Second is Plopper. In Plopper, you're a thing. I'm not gonna try and explain it. And you, as well as the other players, will be dropped into a random map and tasked with destroying whatever area you're in. The main gimmick is throwing yourself. That's it, but it's very cool. When throwing yourself, you're tasked with aiming your throw to destroy as much as possible. Anyways, with the controls out of the way you beat your opponents is by destroying the most. When you destroy stuff, you get points. The person with the most points wins. Anyways, when you destroy stuff and or win, you get currency. You can use that currency to buy some very overpriced hats. Anyways, some of the reasons the game is underrated are the lack of content, overpriced items, and the game, yet again, not taking itself seriously. I think the lack of content is the repetitiveness of each round. I believe the game could benefit from something similar to the events in Super Bomb Survival. For example, halfway through a round, an event could trigger and last until the end of the round. Examples of what events could be are low gravity, no jumping, constant ragdoll, and not being able to touch certain colors. I believe they could solve the problem for the overpriced items by killing two birds with one stone. By making the game more replayable, they could give people reasons to want to play and grind for money. For the game not taking itself seriously, I think it's also fine, and that if the developers want the game to be goofy, then it can be goofy. Overall, another great game. And third is Project Gaming, a multiplayer Smash Bros. Inspired platform fighting game with 4 characters. All the characters have different fighting styles and movesets, all feeling very unique. The one game mode is stock, and there are 2 types of lobbies, public lobbies and invite-only lobbies. In public lobbies, you can join anyone and just play, and in private lobbies, you have 3 different game modes, 1v1, free-for-all, and 2v2. The characters are Ozzy, a ranged fighter that fights with their hat, Gearmaster, a classic-looking goofball that takes time to master, having both ranged and melee attacks, Battle Border, who mostly uses melee attacks, and Tempest, a melee character with a charging gimmick. When winning rounds / achieving goals, you obtain currency, which you can use to buy skins and emotes. Anyways, I can't see a reason this game isn't popular besides the lack of characters. Anyways, on to the next one. Next, in fourth is Exorcism, a role-based multiplayer game where one player is an exorcist and the others are ghosts. The exorcist's job is to use an EMF reader to find ghosts that they can hit with their cross, and the ghosts will try to hunt and possess the exorcist in order to win. Overall, this one is another fun multiplayer game that could be great if you're playing with a friend group. In my opinion, the style of this game with the ghost feels extremely unique. In the past, this game averaged around 70k to 90k players on the daily, but now it only averages around 5 to 7. Personally, I think that if this game had more recognition / advertisements, that it could blow up again and show light to a new group of players. Number 5 spot is Chaos Emblems, a story-heavy Undertale-esque lore-filled RPG where you will venture through a vast fantasy world meeting friends and foes. The combat system is split into 3 segments, attacking, items, and defense. The Undertale tidbit I mentioned earlier was about the enemy attacks. When an enemy attacks, you are put into a box and forced to dodge projectiles. Seem familiar? Although I currently haven't fully played through the game, I do plan on it. Overall, it's an amazing game, but I do think some reasons it's so obscure are the lack of publicity and a lack of updates. The game, from what I know, has no community or people that talk about it. It only has 44,000 visits, and for a game created of this quality, almost created 5 whole years ago, it's really low. From what I can tell, this game will one day fall into obscurity and be forgotten. And sixth is Super Overflow, a game made by one of Super Bomb Survival's main musical composers. Like Super Bomb Survival, this game has a wide variety of skills and perks that can help you during gameplay. Speaking of gameplay, in Super Overflow you are dropped into a map while a variety of boxes fall from the sky. The main goal of the game is to break the boxes and gather points. In the end, the player with the most points will win the game. Overall, this game feels full of content and fun, although I think the reason this game is unknown is due to a lack of recognition / coverage and the lack of community. For the coverage point, I mean that no YouTubers or mostly any players have talked about Super Overflow, and for the lack of community, I mean that there's yet again nobody talking about or playing this game. Sadly, I believe this game will yet again float off into obscurity one day. For the 7th spot is RBLX War. In this game, you're basically put into a 3D multiplayer Roblox WarioWare. As you can see, I really like Wario. I mean, just look at the shrine in my closet. Anyways, the gameplay is pretty much being dropped into a round and playing around 20 minigames in a row with a boss minigame at the end, basically just a longer and harder minigame with more points. At the end of the round, the player with the most points wins and is awarded currency that can be used to buy emotes. Some of my favorite minigames include the one where you have to climb a mountain without jumping, the one where you have to find a float before a flood, taco making, color remembering, and hit a man with a tennis racket. Every minigame feels unique and like it has its own unique flair to it. Some may remember this game being popular in around 2019 when many YouTubers were playing it. Sadly, that was its most popular time. Now it's slowly losing players, but still getting consistently updated. I think if they started advertising again, it could get more players, but that's all I have to say. For 8th, I put Bisw World, a rage platformer with a leaping gimmick where you charge up jumps and descend downward towards the end of a crater. There are currently 11 stages and all of them are as rage-inducing as their competitors. From what I've played, the game is extremely difficult. The boost jump is controlled by holding the jump button and letting go at a certain time for a certain jump power. It feels like it has a nice precision to it. Overall, the game just takes copious amounts of skill, making the game hard but rewarding to master. Sadly, this game isn't very popular, most likely being overshadowed by the developer's other, more successful game, Isle. Overall, this is another amazing game with issues it can't change, limiting its potential. Diceboy is in the 9th spot. Diceboy is a 3D platformer collectathon game where you play as a 20-sided dice that has many movement abilities, one being that the player can remove limbs at will and roll around the map quickly. Others are the double jump, boost glide, platform, spin boost, grapple, and dive. Overall, this moveset flows together extremely nicely and feels amazing to control. The goofy and lighthearted nature of this game is a nice change of pace and feels like an early 3D platformer made for the N64. Sadly, the game, from what I can tell, hasn't gotten many main updates in a while and will most likely to have a slow decline until it's one day forgotten. Lastly, in 10th is Find Everything. In Find Everything, you are tasked to wander a vast world with different areas, platforming your way around to find everything. Unlike many other collectathons in this game, everything you collect is random. Things can vary from caterpillars to Mordecai, being extremely hilarious. Everything is hidden nicely, but not too hidden. It feels rewarding to find stuff and add it to your collection. When playing the game, you'll unlock movement abilities for however many things you have. Those being double jump, roll, and air dash. All of them flow nicely together and it feels extremely rewarding when you pull off a combo. Overall, there are currently 220 things in many different areas and characters, again making the game feel very unique, fresh, and fun. Sadly, this game also doesn't get the players it deserves, although once the game is finished and goes out of early access, being free to play instead of having to pay the 240 Robux fee, I believe it will become a very large game with a huge community and fan base, finally getting the recognition it deserves. Thanks for watching to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, which you most likely did due to the fact that you're watching till the end, please consider liking, subscribing, turning on post notifications, commenting, or watching another video. All of the games played in this video will be linked in the description below. Also, if you are watching this when it comes out, happy Thanksgiving if you celebrate it. Anyways, tell your mom I said hi and peace!